We're going live.
That colored boy went to integrated school. Only one in the school. So they come up that evening for the spelling class and everything. Little Johnny sitting there with his little white shirt on and a little tie, looking all nice. So the teacher, the white teacher, so she looked over at one little boy and says, Jimmy, spell cat. Little Jimmy jumped up. The white boy says, C-A-T, cat. Says, that's right, that's nice, Jimmy. Looked at another little white boy and said, Tommy, spell rat. He said, R-A-T, rat. Said, Johnny, spell chrysanthemum. Johnny say, what color, white or pink? She said, pink. He said, P-I-N-K, pink.
Oh, you're back again, huh?
I just ran in here to get away from a mugger. It's obvious I didn't know when I was well off.
Did you?
I'm gonna rock your world.
Kill me. Kill me. Go ahead. Just right there. Stick it right in the
Oh,
neck.
you so crazy.
Please.
Wait a minute. First of all, what happened to the 357?
No, shoot me in the eyes.
It's not my good boy. See, I had this problem all the time. They always get nervous and stuff because they can't handle this type of woman. I'm too much for them. But what we need to do is just relax ourselves, you know? All I need to do is just have me a little smoke so you can get your mind together, you know? Then I'll let you imagine what you've been missing. Mother God, I see the face of Satan himself. Why don't you give the devil his dues? Where you going?
I forgot how funny that was.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Five Black. Did you make fun of my dancing?
I like that music. It's a good promo music.
Yep. Now, welcome to the Five Black Comics. We're here every Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. if you're on the Pacific Coast or the West Coast. Today, we're talking about the history of Black comedy, all the greats, all the things they went through to get where they are, all the things Black comics of today have to go through. And we have to deal with what makes Black comedy different. We're going to hit all the different aspects of Black comedy. Even though we're on stage and we're making people laugh, believe me, behind the scenes, it's not as rosy of a picture as everyone thinks. Today on the show, I'm going to go clockwise. I'm going to start with Tanya. Before I get to Tanya, we all did some research on Black comedy, and I found out some things that I did not know. Before there were Amos and Andy, there was a duo called Miller and Lyles. Did you know that, Tanya? Miller, you ever heard of Miller and Lyles?
It sounds familiar, but not as.
Yeah, they were two Black comics, and they had a show, and it was doing so well on the radio that it was doing so well that they would offer the radio show. And they're all set to get the radio show, and the show is going to be sponsored by Log Cabin Pancake Syrup.
Right.
And that was until Log Cabin found out that the duo were Black. So they lost the contract, they lost the show, and they were never able to get another radio show. So in comes two white guys. I forgot their names, but they created this Amos and Andy. So it's two black guys talking like two white dudes talking like two black guys on the radio. And they did that for 30 years as Amos and Andy. And they denied that they got the act from Miller and Lyles, but in the end of their career, they did admit that they stole the act of Amos and Andy. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. So the angle I'm going to take today on the show is I'm going to look at all the different ways that all the different hoops that black people have to jump through when we're in comedy. Dick Gregory said he turned down the Tonight Show. At that time, it was hosted by Jack Parr.
Yep.
And he turned down the Tonight Show because black people were not allowed to sit on the couch next to Jack Parr. This shit just blows my mind. Black people were not allowed to sit next to Jack Parr after they do their routine. Normally, after the routine, the comic will go sit next to Jack Parr and they have a little interview. But so Dick Gregory, regardless of how much successful he would have been, he said, no, if I can't sit next to Jack Parr like a human being, I'm not going on the show. So
that night in Miami with Jim Brown, where the man brings him lemonade and can sit on the porch, but you ain't coming in the house.
Yeah. So
he said, we don't allow, ain't no niggas allowed in the house.
Well, one day I hope we can do a show where we talk about zero obstacles for black people. I would love to do that. But Tanya, I'm going to start with you today, and I know you did some research on the history of black comedy. And you can go whatever angle you want, whatever angle you want to go. So go ahead, Tanya.
So first, it appears that women were represented in general in comedy. Somebody needs to mute. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that. That's the air car. So it seems like women in general were represented in comedy since, believe it or not. But that's when you're talking about black and white. So, well, white actually. And so what changed? Because the Greek theater was really where they say comedy originated from. But I beg to differ because I know in African culture there was the griots. There was different versions of like storytelling and stuff. So with that being said,
there's a noise somewhere.
It's
air on somebody's microphone.
It's Steve's car.
It's Stephen's car.
Yeah, we already know. So at any rate, women, as usual, were always discriminated against anyway. And that's why, even till this day, it's said that a man's supposed to be funny and a woman's not really supposed to be a little funny. So I know.
Let me jump in here and say I did a show for a guy that was booking the show, and he said he doesn't book women comics. He doesn't let them headline. Sorry, because when a woman bombs, when a guy bombs, they can recuperate. He said when a woman bombs, it leaves a stench in the air, and what I mean. Like when a woman bombs, it lingers. I don't know what he meant by that, but that was his explanation for not having a woman headline. Like when a woman bombs, it's kind of like, I guess people say like a drunk woman looks worse than a drunk man.
No, hell has no fury like a woman scorned, something like that. I think that's a.
Yeah, but I mean, they say like if a guy is drunk and laying in the street, it looks worse if there's a drunk woman drunk and laying out in the street.
Okay.
So I guess that's the. Go ahead.
Well, either way, when women started to get into comedy in general, it made it harder for bookings to come by. So let's speed forward. Women traditionally, had the role of wife and mother or whatever. So comedy, we could only do stuff that was non-threatening. So at some point, we have who is it? Well, I have a bunch of history for women, but let's just say that's one of the reasons why somebody like a Moms Mabley was accepted, because she did the old dirty woman thing, and she on the frumpy clothes, and so that was acceptable. But you couldn't do like oh gosh, I just forgot her name. Not Mae West. Is it Mae West? No. What's her name? I just totally forgot the name of one of the actresses who was a sexy vixen Caucasian lady. But they
Marilyn Monroe.
No, and I had her name. Oh my gosh, really? Sorry about that, guys. Either way, it doesn't matter. The point was when someone else tried it, a white lady tried it, and she was very sexy and demeanor. Hollywood still said, we're not having none of that. So I will give it. Was it Mae West? Was it Mae West? Somebody else tried to be funny, but I think it was Mae West. So forgive me, guys. Sometimes it happens. Some of the women that I see that were originally in comedy, starting in 1891, was Fanny Brice. Have you guys heard of her? She lived till 1951. Now she's the one that Funny Girl was made after. She signed with Ziegfeld. So that's if you don't know who she is, look her up. And then came Moms Mabley, 1894, and that dirty old lady in the frumpy clothes look was able to work for her because we couldn't come in as sexy or anything else because remember we were supposed to stay home barefoot and pregnant. And then came Lucille Ball in 1911, she was born in 1911 she lived to 1989, excuse me. And then there was Phyllis Diller. Now, when it comes to the Black females, I know, Kevin, you said you'll be covering some of them because that's a little bit of a different trajectory for us, I'll say. So we got Moms. I didn't know this. Did you guys know that in 1979, Cicely Tyson became the first Black woman to host SNL?
Who's Cicely Tyson? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. I was like, what? And Yvonne Hudson was the first reoccurring cast member on the show. So when you talk about Black women doing things in comedy. And then in 1985, Denitra Venice, did I say her name right? She became the first Black woman to be a full cast member on SNL. I didn't know that either. 2001 was, The Queens of Comedy came out, starring Miss Laura Hayes, Adele Givens, Samore, and Monique. There she goes, Kevin. There's her name once. There's her name once. And then in 2002, guys, Whoopi Goldberg became the first African-American woman person, actually, to have won an Emmy, a Grammy, Academy Award, a Tony Award. Woo, all of the above. And as of now, only 15 people, I think, have accomplished that. So that's big. And then 2003, we have Wanda Sykes. She became the first Black woman to get her own TV show. And I didn't know that either. I thought it was somebody else, but that's great. In 2014, there was Amber Ruffin. She became the first Black woman to write for Late Night with Seth Meyers. I didn't know that either. So that's what I'm going to give you for now, because I know you guys we have a lot to cover. But that's who we have now.
All right. So Kevin, you're next. What are your findings on Black history and where we've started and how far we've come and where we're going?
I don't know, man. It's an interesting thing. I mean, all of us are professional comics and have done shows, around the world or whatever. I find it very interesting that even till this day, I remember back in the 80s when I started, there were club bookers who wouldn't put two Black comedians on the same show.
Oh, yeah.
Almost 40 years later, that is still practiced by some club bookers. Today, it is still practiced. I know bookers who still won't do it.
Yeah.
I work with bookers who still won't do it. But then I work for bookers, and that most people don't know. Most bookers are either white or Jewish, or whatever. Yeah. I know some that will put 3 Black comics. I'm a headliner, as we all know. That's what that means. If you don't know, in the comedy industry, it's the guy who closes the show for the layman that's watching the show. But when I've had an MC and a feature act go up before me. I've had 2 Black people on my show, and me being the headliner. So you can, in today's world, see 3 Black acts, but it is widely practiced by a lot of bookers still not to put 3 Black acts. Or 2 Black acts on the same show.
Yeah, or even 2 women sometimes.
Well, the thing about women, I used to own a comedy club. I ran a comedy club in New York for 4 years. I owned my own comedy club, and we had women headliners come in But we also noticed that when we book women, I think I probably booked more female headliners than anybody in New York.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, but people wouldn't show up to see them. We had trouble when we bringing some funny women, but people wouldn't come in to see them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a weird thing, man. And the audience won't come see a funny female that's not famous. So yeah, they're going to show up and see a Wanda Sykes,
right,
or somebody of that nature. But just a regular touring headliner comic who's not famous but headlines comedy clubs because they got the act to do so.
Yeah.
People aren't going to rush through the door to pay to see a female comic. So we always put female comics on our roster and on our website, and we just knew it was going to be one of those weekends, where we had to put them on special shows like a Valentine's show would do. A 2-headliner show with a female headliner and a male headliner, put them together. That way, we'll pack the Valentine's show, something like that. So I want to bring that up. You touched on Dick Gregory, who was awesome and somebody that I had the pleasure of having dinner with, as I told you guys privately. And Paul Mooney. I want to talk about Paul Mooney for a second, man. Paul Mooney, who just doesn't get the praise that he deserves. I think he gets it from he gets it from comedians, but he doesn't get it from the public. And one of the reasons why is he, talked about white people. He's the Malcolm X of comedy. You know? But here's the other thing: you go to a Paul Mooney show, and there's plenty of white people there. I've been to Paul Mooney shows and seen it packed with white people, but he just never got to. As we know, he's a writer for the Red Fox show, and also was Richard Pryor's second-hand man. He's from that crew, with Pryor. And there's been some controversy of late that he didn't write a lot of Pryor stuff, as he said, but that's a whole nother show probably. But Paul Mooney, I want to bring him up as being one of the definitely kings of comedy who doesn't get the accolades. I was insulted by the Kings of Comedy tour, by the way, and I love Bernie Mac and D.L. Hughley's probably one of my favorite comics today. Touring comics. If anybody asks me who one of your favorite touring comics right now, D.L. will be the first one to pop out my mouth probably. I love D.L. and I work with Bernie, and I know him personally. Nicest guy ever, But I mean, how do you call yourself the Kings of Comedy?
Self-proclaimed.
And Steve Harvey, who doesn't get credit in today's world as being a beast, but when he was a comedy club act, he was a beast. I know I worked with Steve when he was a comedy club act. He was a beast on stage, but some of that luster went away as he became more famous and stuff like that. And that happens to certain comedians. When you get famous, you lose some of that lust like that. We played a clip of Jamie Foxx and Tommy Davidson, and those two guys. And Jamie's definitely getting accolades he deserves. He's probably, one of the most talented actors and comedians working today. We all agree on that, and we all know Tommy, who doesn't get the respect he deserves, even though he's Tommy Davidson and, he's a so-called comedy legend. He doesn't get the respect he deserves, but Tommy Davidson is out of this world talented. He should be doing movies like this, no other thing, because the guy is just, talent just comes out of his pores, man. My point is, it's so much. There's so many angles we can take with this, I want to bring up also the racism in comedy that we all probably have dealt with, as far as like not having two comics on the show or something like that, two black comics on the show, or the dress code thing that a lot of black comics have to deal with. A friend of mine was performing in Atlantic City at a comedy club that's no longer around called the Comedy Stop, which was a very popular, famous club back in the 80s and 90s in Atlantic City at the Tropicana. And I remember him telling me that I played the Comedy Stop, by the way. It's a great club. But I remember him telling me the owner, who had a reputation for being a redneck and a racist, used to pick on the black comics about their attire. And, most black comics dress well anyway. We like to dress when we go on stage, And he's like, I'm wearing a suit. The guy still picked on him about his outfit. But then the white comic was dressed like he had a cup in his hand, you know, and he said nothing to him, you know. I mean, it's those things that people don't see.
Yeah.
You know, the public don't see, the audience don't see these little knick-knack things that we go through, you know. The dress code thing sometimes we got to go through, or just all those little knick-knack things that happen to the black comics and stuff like that.
I had a booker tell me he was opening a club and he wanted to have me, and I said, well, I can bring up another comic, and it was another black comic I was bringing. And he said, well, he didn't come right out and say it, but he was pretty much saying that if 2 black acts open up his club, people would think it's a black comedy club, and they might not come back, or they would tell people it's a black comedy club. So he wanted, it was on the Cape in Massachusetts. So
wow, and and I'm glad you brought that point up real quickly, Carl, because me also being a product of Def Comedy Jam, the great show Def Comedy Jam, I think it really helped comedy and hurt comedy in a sense. It segregated comedy, you know. I mean, I was what we call in the industry a mainstream comic, you know. What that means to people that may not know, that means you work basically. You're a black comic that basically work in front of white crowds, so you're called mainstream. Yeah. But then you got your urban comedy circuit. So when Def Jam became the big hit it was, and I was on Def Comedy Jam, and a lot of the club bookers that I was working for would now not hire me to work the regular nights. They would put me on the Def Jam nights, you know. Like, well, you can't come in on Friday and Saturday anymore. You're not a Def Jam act. You can only work on Thursday, you know, or Wednesday, you know, because those are the Def Jam nights, or the Apollo night, you know. Like, wait a minute, I've been headlining this club for 10 years. I can only work the Apollo night now. You know, so that's what that happened, and comedy became segregated because now you had black comedy nights and white comedy nights, you know. And Dale touched on this for a minute, because what happened was black comedy became so popular, they were selling these nights out like Thursdays and Wednesdays, and these off nights they would give to black producers that were bringing in all these black shows into the Funny Bones and Improvs and stuff like that. They were selling these places out because people wanted to come see black comics. Black comedy, Def Jam made black comedy super hot, you know. Yeah. But then it became so hot that people start getting these weekends, you know, especially guys who blew up off of Def Jam, who became celebrities like the Samores, Del Givens, and some of the people who became household names with the black community, but weren't really mainstream stars, but they were, you know, big names with the black community. They were selling out these clubs so much that they had to push them over into and that happened to DL too. DL got a door deal to go into a club in Jersey because the guy would only book him on a door deal, and he sold the place out for like 7 straight shows, you know. And then that's what it took for him to get respect, you know, from this booker, you know. Yeah. One more thing, real touching, then we move on to somebody else. And speaking of that, if you ever look at the rosters of these comedy clubs now, the so-called A comedy clubs, you know, you look at the roster, a lot of it is also, if you look at the roster, you see a lot of black acts and white acts that headline these major rooms, you know, and you're always to see that a lot of the black acts are mainstream, are household names. You'll see Cedric the Entertainer or Eddie Griffin, or, you know, you see these names, these main Tommy Davis and all these guys who are stars, you know, in a sense, headlining these rooms. And then you see the white acts, and you'd be like, well, who the hell is that? Right. You know? Right. Who's that? Right. Exactly. Who's that? You know, so you don't have to be a so-called household name to headline some of these major comedy clubs and make the big bucks. But a lot of these major comedy clubs won't book you to headline unless you are a household name.
Yeah.
Melanated people.
What I don't get, funny is funny. I don't understand why. Well, it's a stupid question. I know we're in America, so that's a question. That's a dumb fucking question. So, Desi, I know why. I knew the answer even as I was asking it. As to why, but we know why. Desi, I'm gonna ask you a question though, and then you can move on to your angle. But like buckwheat and Rochester. Do you think that they were doing what they had to do? Because right now, if somebody calls you like a buckwheat, or they were kind of, I guess you say, shucking and jiving. I guess, I don't know, probably Rochester, like from Jack Benny or like Stephen Fetchit. They were doing what they had to do at the time, because I'm sure if they wanted to do smart comedy or show an intelligent side to them, they weren't allowed to do it. So, I mean, like when somebody calls you a Stephen Fetchit as an insult, he was basically doing what he had to, because back in those days, he could not, because I've seen him not perform. Like I've seen an interview with him, and he's like, he doesn't talk that way. He's very intelligent. You know what I mean? So my question is, do you think they were doing what they had to do, or you think it's fair for people to look down on them in today and call someone a Stephen Fetchit?
Well, what I think is the way they approach comedy or entertainment is the way I did. In other words, what's my talent and how can I market it? The only thing is that they might have had to do the exact opposite. In other words, they might have been very intelligent comedians, but they were so intelligent they figured out that they could only make money by playing into the stereotypes. And at the time, I mean,
Yeah, we lost you. Yeah, we lost your audio for a second. Your audio went out.
Oh, okay. How about now?
Yeah,
all right, I'm closer to the laptop now.
Okay.
I was saying, in order to make money, you had to do what you had to do. We still have that in our society today. Like, that you can make it if you buck dance, or if you play up to stereotypes. You'll get promoted. You'll make it ahead. But nobody wants to get it that way, and because you still have to go home and be around your and it's no longer acceptable to just do it for the money. If you look at the big backlash now is against comedians wearing dresses, and we saw that Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor,
Jamie Foxx,
they all wore dresses.
Yeah.
And then Dave Chappelle was the first guy I know who made it at that level, who just absolutely refused to wear a dress and spoke about it publicly. So he took a stand. Yeah. And so that's a really good question. I think that you can't make it now if you buck dance, I call it. And back then, that was the only way to make it, because the dominant society controlled the levers of power. The only way you could really make it is on the chitlin circuit, where you are free. And most of the time, when you work, that's where the real history of comedy and music and everything else comes from.
Yeah.
And when you work that way, most of the time you had to fear your act being ripped off by a member of the dominant society. Like Chuck Berry got ripped off by Pat Boone, a wom bom a loo bom a la ba. He couldn't really do Tutti Frutti.
Yeah,
it's a scary thing.
Yeah,
and that leads me into my thing. Well, I was thinking, I was trying to research comedy, and I'm thinking, who was the first Black comedian in America? It had to be a slave.
Yeah.
They got cracked with that whip. If they cracked a joke, maybe he would go a little lighter.
That's right.
That's hard. It'd be hard to think of a joke when that's happening, but man, if you could come up with one, you were probably golden.
Yeah.
Not far fetched, because we had to make people laugh, so it's not far fetched, Des. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was our.
I think a lot of that. If you saw Django, the Steven character, I think that was those people. They did what buck dancing was. They figured out a way to not be in the field and just entertain the owners. That's how they made it. And so I don't know. But my comedy history starts and ends really with Eddie Murphy. He was the first person that made me want to be a comedian. And I loved him so much that everything I did was Eddie Murphy. And then I had to research. I had to go back from him he was inspired by Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor was Red Fox. One thing great about Richard Pryor, he was the first one to include. He was credited with being the one to popularize the style of putting your personal life in your act. Most comedians before that would just talk and tell stories. Richard Pryor would talk about his mom, his dad, and his stuff like that. Richard Pryor was inspired by Red Fox. Red Fox was inspired by Dick Gregory. So Dick Gregory, for me, just me personally, is the beginning, because he said that he was the first comedian that could stand and do jokes. Before that, if you were black and you were a comedian for the dominant society, you had to move, you had to sing, you had to do something. And Dick Gregory was the first to stand and do jokes.
Slapstick. Yeah.
Richard Pryor. I'm sorry. I just want to say Richard Pryor. Speaking of racism in comedy clubs, I keep going back to this because when Richard Pryor passed away, I had a Richard Pryor T-shirt that I had bought, and I had it on, and I'm performing in Newport News, Virginia, at a comedy club, and I'm on stage. So I got my blazer on, I got my Richard Pryor T-shirt on, and I'm doing it in the middle of my set. Some white guy in the front row who obviously had way too much to drink goes, "Who's that nigger on your shirt?"
Whoa!
Yeah. And he was immediately thrown out of the club. He was there for a bachelor party. So he had to leave and go sit in the limousine. All his boys apologized after the show big time, but the excuse was he had too much to drink, but there's no excuse for that, you know what I mean?
Well,
but see, a white comic would never have to deal with that, A white comic in front of a black audience is going to get love.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, not most of them. Most of them.
Yeah, most of them. Yeah,
If they're fun.
love. Most of them will get love. But,
And also too, how many of us black comedians have gotten off stage and somebody drunk stumbles over and says, "Do you want to hear a joke?" And if it's somebody, you run for the hills because you know it's going to be an N-word joke.
Oh, it's a
So
racist
you
joke,
have to.
Yeah. And it starts with "I'm not racist," but
Yeah, you're right.
And that's when you-
I'm not racist.
I'm not racist, but my friends are. So let me share one of their jokes with you.
like I told you about this white guy that said to me after a show, "Hey, how come black people's hair don't move when they're sitting on the back of a motorcycle?"
Yeah.
What? It's not even a joke. It's not even like
I'm gonna laugh.
I used to just moonwalk away. I literally moonwalk back away when people start coming to me.
Hey, Desi, I'm with you. Richard Pryor is the king forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the GOAT forever.
Yes.
And no disrespect to Pryor, who's made Eddie possible, but yeah, to me, Eddie is just who just done it for me, man. You can do no wrong in my eyes, man. He's just
Well, that was
Eddie
like
Murphy, man.
why Eddie wanted to do Harlem Nights so bad, because he wanted to work with Richard.
Right. Yeah.
All right,
Do you guys realize that Raw was 31 years ago? Eddie Murphy Raw was 31 years.
31 years ago.
Feels like just yesterday, right?
That was Raw, and that was the second one. Raw was the second big one he did. The first one, I actually saw Eddie Murphy in his Delirious tour when he came to Boston, when he had
and he did his act, and then he started doing his act verbatim.
That's funny. That's
What
funny.
was the name of the when he did his grandmother? It's cold. It's cold. Make me a cup of tea. What? What was the name of that?
Aunt Bunny falling down the steps was the one.
That was on Delirious.
Yeah.
When Aunt Bunny fell down the steps, and Goonie Goo Goo.
Yeah.
And
but that's the only knock on Eddie Murphy is that his material is not timeless. Some of that stuff will not work today.
Yeah.
Right.
Richard Pryor act can still work today.
Yeah.
You can actually take Pryor's act and put Pryor on stage today, and it's still going to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can. Eddie's Delirious could not only not be done today because of the content of the material, but it wouldn't even be funny today if he could do it.
Yes.
Right.
That's just my opinion, But
the bit about
that takes nothing from him. He's still the GOAT in my eyes, but I think his material has not lasted the test of time. And Red Fox, you can still put a Red Fox album and still laugh your ass off,
Yes, and I have.
Bill Cosby. Sorry. Bill Cosby too had some classic albums.
Yeah, and that stuff will still work. Cosby stuff will still work today.
Yes.
I was going to talk about Cosby. I don't want us to forget Cosby because of what happened.
Right, we can't.
You know, I just think, I'm a father of a daughter. I don't play with rapists, but I still have my thoughts on that, and I won't bring it up on this show. We'll do a Cosby show one day, but my whole thing is, I still think Cosby, we can't not remember his greatness for what he did on stage and what he did for black entertainers. Cosby opened doors.
Agree.
A lot of black entertainers.
And they don't forget about Woody Allen, so don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he opened doors. He opened doors like crazy for black entertainers in this in this industry. I mean, if what he did is true, it's very bad. But he also did a lot of good as far as being an entertainer, as far as opening doors, being a trailblazer, we tend to forget that. I mean, people want to forget that, and I don't think we should let them,
No.
And the same thing goes with, I saw this whole thing on these getting off subject, I'm sorry, about black football players, black running backs.
That's what we do here, man.
I'm like, how you do a thing on black running backs, great black running backs, but don't bring up O.J. Simpson?
What? They didn't bring up O.J. Then
O.J. was not on the clip.
No conversation.
I don't know if anybody here old enough to just go to YouTube and watch an O.J. Simpson.
No, we
clip.
all know.
The guy on the field was one of the most. He never won a Super Bowl to my knowledge, but because he stayed injured all the time. But he was one of the most amazing. His O.J. Simpson highlight reel is freaking incredible.
Crazy.
That's all I gotta say. Incredible.
Yes, so, I can say as a woman, Kevin, you are dead on about that. I personally, I have a bunch of brothers. I didn't even like football till one day I saw OJ running, and I was like, oh boy, I was at the screen every time.
Yeah, so. OJ was amazing, man. So people, we can't allow our entertainers, our great black people, to be taken down from great things they did because of how things worked out, No matter what we think about it. No matter what we think about the Simpson case, he was found not guilty last time I checked.
Yeah. Well, that.
Listen, society, they just had a death of one of their icons this week, and you hear nothing but good things about them. And for me, there's a whole lot of things that you could take them down about. So
and I did.
Well, that's not even. We got
that's how they work, though, because if you look at what the dominant society did. As far as like when you talk about the problems Cosby and others had, okay, tell me why Roman Polanski, who fled the country to avoid prosecution, and yet you still gave the man an Oscar.
Tell it, and that was a 12-year-old girl, not 12, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get the
point.
Well,
they also elected a president that had about 20 women accuse him of sexual assault too.
Right. Oh, but a 13-year-old girl.
Forget that. Now the new one is Ghislaine. Somebody has a book coming out that Ghislaine said that she Epstein had pictures of 45 and Clinton of both of them. So
that's a whole nother show because when they said he committed suicide, I was like, he's
alive.
He didn't commit suicide. They knew
that show's coming up,
their pictures, and he's got their dirt. And if he goes down, he's dragging them under the bus with him. And they're like, we can't let that happen.
No. The point was that Kevin was making with that, and for our viewers to know that there's lots of people that committed horrible atrocities, including slavery, that were still linked and alive, and no one took them down and wiped them out of history. Some people don't even want to get rid of Christopher Columbus. I'm just saying. So why can't we talk about Cosby?
Great point, Tanya. Great point. That's right. So you know what?
I keep Columbus. We keep in Cosby on that one.
That's right. And
I saw him live too, out in Springfield.
I work with him. Well, I work with Bill Cosby. I don't have a good story about him because he wasn't very nice to me, but I still love him.
Okay.
And Bill Cosby, I'll tell you guys off the air my Bill Cosby story. But he was a prima donna, but and didn't have a lot of love for the unknown comedian that but that he was about to introduce. But it was a pleasure.
We should do a not very nice comic show about the comics.
I was in his presence, and I took a picture. He took a picture with me, and And the picture's in my book, by the way. And if you guys have the book, you see the picture of me and Bill Cosby in there. Because some people don't read; they just go to the picture. So you probably already saw it.
Actually, Carl.
Is that Kevin Lee with the Jacksons? Yeah. So no, but Bill Cosby, I'm just grateful to have been in his presence, man. How about that? I don't care. I'm grateful to have been in his presence, and he didn't slip me anything.
You guys remember?
I worked for Sinbad, and I was an unknown, and he was the greatest ever. Me and him still talk, and I love Sinbad to this day because he kind of took me under his arm and under his wing and sent me out to Cali and helped me a lot.
That's good, man. Yeah, Sinbad's good people, man. That's the reason I was on the Apollo, because Sinbad told me to come on the Apollo, man. You know, and because I was working with him when he was hosting the Apollo, and at that point, going back to my thing, at that point when I was working with Sinbad, I didn't think I can work in front of black crowds, right? Because at that point there was no Def Comedy Jam. This is way before Def Comedy Jam, you know, and all that sort of stuff, and all the audiences were white audiences. And then when I go on the Apollo and I do well on the Apollo, and that led to me getting to on a Def Jam, 2 years later, you know. So, and then, and white comics never have to do that. They don't have to work in front of a white crowd on Wednesday night and all black crowd on Thursday night, you know.
And there's two different crowds.
It is. There's two different crowds. They don't have that pressure. We have that pressure, you know. And the Apollo, which speaking of black comedy, on the Apollo, it's horrible, man. I know it's a tradition, the booing thing. I just think it's wrong. I think it's wrong to put that on national television. I've always been against that. And I did the Apollo, but I wasn't on the amateur thing. I went on as a professional. I had a great set on the Apollo. It's a great experience to be on that stage with all the legends that have been on that stage, whatever, you know. But the credit has no credibility in the industry.
No.
I don't even think you look on my resume now, you see Showtime at the Apollo. I mean, it's just, it has, like, it wasn't a TV credit it wasn't a TV credit you could take it to the industry and go, I did Showtime at the Apollo. And people go, yeah, really? Well, I'm gonna book you immediately. You know, it had no credibility. Like, the club owners didn't look at it as a legit credit.
No,
because it was black and
yeah.
Well, that's not. I mean,
the way that
not,
the crowds
I think
are.
it was the booing thing, Tanya, that made them not look at it that way. Because Def Jam or even BET Comic View had some clout at one point. You know, when if you had a BET Comic View credit, you can put that down on your resume, and it would have a little bit of, credibility to it. And Def Jam had a lot of credibility to it at one point, you know, and still does, you know. I mean, in a sense, you know, now Def Jam is known as an iconic show, you know. So, you know, it's in history books as a groundbreaking show, you know. So, but yeah, man, I think that's interesting.
Preach never got a chance to do his black.
I'm sorry, Preach.
That's all right.
That'd be good.
I got your spot. You should know what it's like.
You got a lot to follow, bro.
I got the Kevin spot. I got the.
Preach, my question for you before you go into your angle you're going to take on the history of black comedy. Do you think, like, when I talk about racism to a lot of my white comedian friends, and I talk about the stuff I have to go through, they just tell me, make it funny. Just, talk about it on stage. Make it funny. Make it funny. And sometimes I feel like, why do I always have to make it funny? Why do I, like, comics enjoy talking about racism? I don't enjoy it. But it's just a part of my life. So, as a comedian, it's something that part of life we talk about it on stage. But I just get annoyed sometimes when they tell me, just talk about like it's that simple. I just go on stage, I talk about it, and it's gone, and like magic, it's gone. It's just annoying. Do you think it helps? I mean, like if when black, like Dave Chappelle or Richard Pryor, the racist stuff they talk about, they deal with, does it really help society as a whole? You think white people or racist people go home and go, you know what? But that comedian said is true. I'm going to stop being racist.
I think you know what? I think there might be one or two, and like they say, where they always say, "Oh, send your money to save little Habib in the mud pit." And if you only save one, if you save one person, then it was worth it. So maybe their jokes or the things that they talk about, will open the eyes of one person, and that'll change one person, and that's progress, I guess. I was watching a piece of Richard Pryor where he was talking about how he was shooting his car up when his wife was going to leave him, and he was like, "Well, you're not going to take this." And I took my Magnum and went out and started shooting the car. He goes, and then the police was coming. He goes, and the police got Magnums too, but they don't shoot cars. They shoot niggars. He goes, and it's the same thing that it's the same thing that they do today. See, you could use that today because police still are shooting niggars, or when you talk about how they broke a nigger, and can you do that? And they go, well, look at the manual. And it's true, because they still had it in police manuals where the chokehold was legal. The chokehold was legal to use. So, and they killed people using it. So, yeah, you kind of use what's in society, and you try and make fun of it to bring it to light. But that's not going to make it go away. And a lot of the especially coming from Boston, Carl, you know this. They used to have a show that they used to call Comics Against Racism.
Yeah.
Okay, and it would be like 6-7 white guys. No women, no people of color, no Puerto Ricans, no blacks, no Indians, no Native Americans. Just 8 white guys doing comics against racism. It's like, yeah, y'all. I'm sure y'all have a good perspective on what racism is, because no, they don't. They don't. And then when you tried to have a show that dealt with when we did the gang violence show, we did a show because we had a friend whose brother was taken by gang violence. He was a comic, and we helped put together a benefit. And what they did was we actually had artwork from a high school senior, okay, who's in the midst of the gang violence, all right? And we're trying to talk about gang violence and the stuff that's going on in the street, the drugs, the guns. And it was a syringe, it was an animated syringe that was being shattered by a fist with a microphone in it. So in other words, the comedy is going to break, this cycle of things. Well, they didn't want to use that. Oh, that's too graphic. Isn't that a needle? And you made the needle a person? And they didn't want to use that, even though that's coming from a teenage Black person who lives in this. And this is the image he's putting out there to say, this is what we need to show. And they're like, oh no, that's violent. But that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with violence. We're dealing with harsh things. That's why he drew it that way. They use the art from a white person, where it's just a fist, like saying no, like slamming down, like really. So it's like they watered it down so severely. And it's the same with when they try and do other things with racism or comedy in race or racism in comedy. They gloss it over. They know it exists. Yep. They benefit from it. They benefit from it though. See,
the thing about racism, I mean, I remember when I first started, and I remember I always host. I must have hosted for like 5 or 6 straight years. That would never, and I would host, and after the show, people would tell me, "Man, you should have been the headliner. You should not have been hosting." But all they would have me do is just host constantly, just host all the time. And I knew what was going on, and I know they paid me less. I knew they paid me less because I knew what other comics were getting. I knew what other comics would say, hey, this is how much we're getting for this gig. Then I would call let's say it was $750 for the weekend, they would offer me $500 or $400 for the weekend. Now my dilemma was, this was my dilemma. Do I say, screw you, I know you're paying me less, and then become a pariah in the comedy circuit and then not get anything, and then I can't get a gig, I can't work on my act? Or do I take it and work on my act? And that's the road I took. I said, I'm going to take all these gigs. I'm going to take the money, the small, the least amount of money that they're giving me, but I'm going to work on my act. So, and that's why I took the gigs, because I knew, as I said, one day I'm going to get better. And then I'm going to get to the point where I can demand how much money you guys are going to pay me. Right now, I'm going to put up with all this bullshit that you guys are doing. And
or you get to do your own thing. Like, see, when you talk about comic greats, a lot of people don't remember people like Rudy Ray Moore.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think it was last year, Eddie Murphy did a movie where he played him.
Yeah.
Right.
And basically he did everything he went through because people are like, yeah, no, you're not the typical atypical comic. You're overweight. You're dirty. You do this. You're black. So they wouldn't put him on. So he put himself on the Chitlin circuit. And then he produced his own movies. And some of them were kind of far-fetched with the acting and him knowing karate and everything. Yeah, you know karate, but he did it like he did, and it worked for him.
Yeah. I'm gonna go, Tanya. We want to touch on sexism in comedy.
That's a big one because it was back then, where women couldn't get in. It's the same as the workplace. Comedy's even worse. But now it still exists because I've been to like Mike's where there's like 30 20-year-old white males and I'm the only woman, and so there's little things that pop up like I got to sit through all those penis jokes. That's one, and then two. I had someone once tell me, what did the guy say to me? And it actually was a black comic that said it. He says, you only got booked for that show because of the way you dress and because you're pretty. And I said, really? I said, that's interesting. So he would waste his time booking me because of whatever you're thinking. He said, yeah, that's always why. So I was really offended by that. But I'm glad it was a good set and people laughed. So I was like, well, I guess I'm funny and I'm pretty. Oh, so I went back. But, so you have to deal with little sly comments. Like you're not really funny. It's just your looks that's getting you. And then another thing is I like to dress. Kevin, I think you said this too. I like to dress for stage. Why? Not because I'm trying to outshine anybody, but because why are you going to go pay your $25 or $10, whatever it is, and just to see me in a pair of jeans? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, this is my personal opinion. I'm supposed to be giving you a show. I'm always going to come from that standpoint. So if I happen to have on, I don't rarely wear dresses, but if I did, it's not because I'm trying to be sexy and get all the work from the male comics. It's because I just believe in old school, back in the Rat Pack days, you wear your best. People are paying to see you. Why do they want to come see you in a pair of jeans and a pair of sneakers, unless it's like a young college crowd or something like that? But why would they do that? So sexism to me is real on many levels. Even now, I just can't believe, like, I could really probably count all the female comics. Matter of fact, they had a poster they did, and I want to say it was like 3,000 or something where you can count it. That's too little. And I started doing my own shows, even though they're not to big degrees, but I started doing my own shows because I was like, why am I begging somebody for a spot? I don't care about their spot. I'm doing my own thing. So I started doing that because in the future, for me, as a woman, I want to make my own way. I'm making my own movies. I'm doing my own thing. I don't want to rely on anybody else because it's going to always be an underdog. Yeah. And usually the woman is the underdog. Then comes the black male. Then comes what I'm saying? There's like a command here. And I'm tired of being on the low end. So I'm taking the reins, and me and my reindeer getting out of here.
Going back to talking about how white men get a pass, black men can do crime, white men do the same crime, the white man gets a pass. I'm sure you guys remember Marv Alpert. Remember him?
Yeah, Biter.
But yeah, right?
Biter.
He's still out. And he came back.
Michael
was announcing basketball games, right, or whatever, right?
Right. He's into biting. He's into that kind of kink.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
But you know what it is when they have things like that? Unfortunately, when it happened, there was a whole bunch of people. I'm saying people. I didn't say white people. I said people who were like, damn, I wish I could have done that too. I'd have been so and so. Or when Clinton, got impeached with Monica Lewinsky, there was a bunch of people going, hell yeah, if I was president, I want to get a blowjob in the Oval Office. So it didn't hurt them. It actually boosted their ratings. People were like, yeah, I would do that too.
Well, Clinton wasn't the first one to get a blowjob in Oval Office. That's great.
No, I want to mention Kennedy. You didn't want to go back like that.
On.
And Trump ain't the only one grabbing boomba-goondas. You know what I'm talking about?
Trump's not the only one grabbing up a JJ?
He ain't the only one. He only one that's stupid enough to say it.
That was Kennedy, right? With the women, they said
Kennedy was notorious for having been with Marilyn Monroe. Remember when she sang the song "Happy Birthday, Mr. President"?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Joe DiMaggio not happy with that. Just saying.
We don't want to get sued. Say allegedly.
Allegedly.
That's why I said she allegedly sang. Well, she did sing. I didn't say allegedly did anything. I said she sang the song. She did sing the song "Happy Birthday, Mr. President."
Yeah,
but it's how she sang that song, which would lead you to believe that there was other stuff happening.
Yes.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yes. You know, she did a movie too. Speaking of comedy, she did some movies that were comedic in form. So I didn't realize that, but I was like, well, we still don't consider her a stand-up comedian, right? She's an actress rather than stand-up. But
yeah.
No.
And that's another thing. Sometimes, like, comics get that thing they're called comedy actors, like, instead of being called stand-up comedians too, you know. I mean, you got guys out here who are funny, but they're not really. I mean, Flip Wilson, for example, nobody ever goes, Flip Wilson was a great stand-up. You know what I mean? You never hear that. You know, that boy was a killer on stage. He did stand up, but he's not known for his stand up. He's known for his skits on his TV show. Geraldine, and the first guy to put on a dress, right? And I think when Flip Wilson put on a dress, he wasn't forced to put on a dress. I just think he was being creative.
Right.
I think all the other guys probably were forced into putting on a dress for their careers. But I think Flip Wilson was his decision at that time, from what I understand, you know, to do that.
I think the whole reasoning, though, behind having black men, especially, put on a dress, even though I've seen white men in dresses, I think it's a way of toning us down.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Demasculating.
Yes, demasculating. Yes, because they're so afraid of us. You know, you put us in a dress, it's like putting a pit bull in in something silly like a little tutu. You know what I mean? Now, even though it's a pit bull, it looks stupid.
Yes.
Right.
Well, Chappelle said something in his last thing that he put out about having major. I think I put it on having the major support from his fan base has allowed him to stay on top without having to. You know what I'm about to say, but I'm not saying we do it.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? So
kowtow.
We all saw the clip. Yeah. And a lot of that does go on. What he said was basically true. Don't get it twisted. There's a lot of celebrities out there that had to do that. Black and white, especially black, you know, to get to that point, you know. And that's another thing. Do you go that route? Do you go the casting couch route to get to the next level? I mean, is your career that important to you? You know, to make that money, to take care of your family and live that amazing lifestyle that you do, you know, drop to your knees and handle your business, or let somebody else handle their business. I mean, it's a practice of Hollywood that's been going on. Look, I mean, we talk about the famous cases like the dude that got busted for sleeping Weinstein.
Oh, Weinstein.
But you know what? The catch-22 to that, and I'm not saying what he did was right, but there's a lot of celebrities right now who are multimillionaires living in mansions, living an amazing life, you know, because they slept with the guy.
They chose to.
But then now they're going to throw him under the bus. Like they didn't know what they were doing when they did it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I know that's touchy for me to say that, but that's real shit.
That's real. I agree with you.
You know,
it's real.
You know, I mean, I'm just saying, sometimes you know, it's an adult show. Sometimes you know why you're sucking the cock, okay? Let's just keep it real. You know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you got, you know, it's going to get you in this movie role.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the bottom line. So now that everybody else is throwing them under the bus, all the other actors are going, well, damn, I did that. Let me jump on this bandwagon and throw them under the bus while we had it. You know, but it was a choice that probably was, you know, I need this break.
But I think a lot of it too is them throwing them under the bus because it's a monetary thing. You know, once he gets convicted, there's going to be the civil suits coming. So you want to be in line for the civil suit. So, you know, like, I'm going to get my piece too.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Desi.
Oh, I was saying, not the comedians, one of the more famous ones now, a guy named Corey Holcomb. He said that no one makes it without paying their dues, and you know what I mean by paying their dues. Well, I never really got to the top level, but I got so disgusted by all the little games and the manipulation, and you know, if it's pure talent, there's a lot of guys that should be out there, but you got to play games, you got to talk to this person, you got to kiss the booker's butt, and all this other stuff. I got sick of it. I started doing private shows, and that was it.
I mean, I told you guys about the flaming gay guy who I didn't care he was gay, but he invited me up to his penthouse to see the skyline of New York City. He was some executive at one of the top networks. And, I'm sure I wouldn't be sitting here doing this right now.
You wouldn't be sitting there. You'd be standing. You'd be standing.
So I'm sure we've all had those offers.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you, even in modeling, I had
those
offers.
I wouldn't be sitting here. No, I'm just kidding.
Speak for yourself. I've had offers from some top photographers way back in the 80s, and I know that they were legit. Their stuff was in vogue. They was doing it. But I chose, see the difference? I chose that, okay, I'm probably killing myself in my career, but it's okay. That's okay. I lived a good life, and I got a little ride for a few years. I was happy with that. Most people are not. And most people, when you go into comedy or you're into any kind of entertainment, whether you're singer, model, what doesn't matter. Most of the people that are doing those acts, when they get to that stage, they're at a desperate level. So they homeless, sleeping in a car in LA, you know, playing like they got something, but they really don't. So they got to make moves at this point.
And they know it too. They know it because they know. You go into any club in New York City or any like LA, you can see the desperation in all the comedians. You can see it, like you can tell you can say, "Come suck my toe," and I'll get you on a sitcom. I guarantee they're all be on your toe. I mean, you can feel and they know it. And the people with the power to put you into the next level, they know it.
Yeah,
they know everything. You know what I mean? Because that guy that wanted me to come up to his penthouse, I'm sure he thought I was gonna, because he picked people to put into a sitcom.
You're right, Carl. You're right. I have a lady friend of mine who's on Facebook. I won't mention her name, but she used to book a very popular, very hot spot. One of the top comedy clubs in the country in Atlantic City. She used to run, and her Facebook post. She could put on her Facebook post, "I have a headache," and she'll have 3,000 comedians comment on it.
Yeah.
The moment she lost that room and she doesn't book it anymore. Yeah. She could put on there right now, "I need $1," and that one comic will comment on that page.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you're right, man. Comedians are the modern day crackheads. I mean,
give me 5 minutes. What I gotta do? 5 minutes.
I used to run a club, man. I know I get so many emails. I've lost. There's another thing people don't talk. I lost friends being a club booker. You know, I lost black friends. Yes. Because I booked a mainstream comedy club, and I had guys that called me up that were Def Jam acts. I mean, you're literally a Def Jam act, and you're not going to work in front of my crowd. You know? Kevin, come on, man, you're not going to put me on.
Right.
I can't book you in my room, man. Your act is not for my crowd. It's just not. I know what you do. Yeah. You know, you're doing something that's going to work in front of Samoa's crowd. You know, you're Def Jam act, hardcore Def Jam act. It's not going to work with a room full of New York white Italians that coming to my club. You know, so I didn't book. I lost friends, man. I had people that stopped, you know, effing with me over me being a booker for 4 years and not bringing them into my crowd because I knew they wouldn't work.
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, man.
And see, that's the pressure, and that's where some comments today. I'm sorry, say that again.
I said 2 minutes left. You got 2
I'm sorry. That's where they're not using common sense, because if that was me, Kevin, and that was me, and I knew I had a deaf, another room, and I couldn't work yours, I would have figured out, all right, if I change my set and show you my new set, maybe you could put me on then. But I wouldn't just be like, I'm not going to be your friend because you're not going to put me on. That's just, there's a lot of comics now. I call it the career suicide.
Yeah. And real quickly, I had a black female comic who accused me of not booking black female headliners. And that's not true either, because I had black female headliners, but there are not a lot of black female headliners either in this industry. There just isn't, there isn't a lot of black female headliners that work the comedy club circuit, I mean, you got Marsha Warfield and all those people that doing clubs, but they mainly stay out on the West Coast and play Vegas when she goes out, but they don't work the comedy club circuit per se, like us guys do,
Right.
Yeah, you don't book no black females in your show, That's not true. I got a few that I book that they're the only ones that's working,
Yeah. All right. Thanks to everyone for watching the show. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching the 5 Black Comics. Today we spoke on the history of black comedy. We hope you guys enjoy it and you come back again next week when Preach is going to tell us what we have coming up next week. If he was
I'm going to do some other stuff first so I can because it's right here in front of me.
Thank you.
I think it was with the red card. I'm gonna have to red card myself for not being ready.
Try to look us on YouTube. We're trying to
build our YouTube
go to YouTube. Yeah, we're trying to up our subscribers on YouTube.
Right.
Yes.
So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and share our YouTube channel. And while Jared's looking, I'd like to thank all our great viewers. Pamela Jones, thank you so much. Gina Fiore. Gina has a book called My Italian Therapy. I hope I got that right, Gina. Gina, I think you've spoken about this publicly. You were diagnosed with, I think, cancer, and you beat it, and you're doing well. And it was all because of My Italian Therapy. I think you have recipes in that book. Follow Gina. You can get more information on her book and what she has been doing with the My Italian Therapy. And please correct me, Gina, if I'm misrepresenting.
Type it in the chat, Gina.
Yeah, type it in the chat. Also, thanks to Anthony Wilder. Thanks to Donna Haygood. Rick Jenkins, comic from Boston, who has a club, the Comedy Studio that he just opened. Well, he had it in Jerry. Rick.
Yeah, Rick used to be in Cambridge. Is now in Somerville.
Now in Somerville. So check that out. Can't get everybody. Norma Staley, thank you so much. Grandma.
Anthony Robertson.
Grandma Anthony Robinson, thank you so much. Thanks to I can't get everyone, but I think I mentioned Donna. Thanks to everyone for watching. And apparently Steve had to bow out because his Wi-Fi was not
up to par. Yeah, I read that.
Yeah. So
I read some other stuff too. Now I have the list. There's a bit of a confusion here because what we have listed for next week is the stealing of black style. Because everybody wants to be in the black style, from sagging pants.
They want the rhythm, but not the blues.
Huh?
You want the rhythm, but not the blues.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they don't want the blues part. They just want the rhythm part.
They want the rhythm.
So that's for next week. March 6th, we have a serious show where we talk about suicide. And then the 13th, we're going to be talking about blacks in animation.
Suicide among the black community, which is not given enough because apparently we're so tough, we don't think about suicide, which is...
No, we don't think about it. We just do it and then don't talk about it.
Yeah. How about that?
So that'll be March 6th.
March 6th.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Mark your calendars. Please tell everyone about the show. Like I said, please try to follow us on YouTube. I mean, if Facebook works, then fine. Some people are not that technically challenged and don't even want to be bothered with Facebook. I mean, with YouTube. I know Desi has to go. Desi is like the black superfather. Desi has a talent
night.
He has a schedule.
Desi,
tonight's talent night.
How old are your kids, Des?
8, 6, and 3.
And you guys are having a talent show. Tonight is talent night.
Oh, wait. Okay, now you said there's no comedy. What are the acts going to be featured? I mean, is it going to be more? Is it going to be some juggling?
dance. Three-year-old is doing magic, so Kevin, you can hook him up, but he's trying to do magic.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then the
that's gonna be
3-year-old
awesome. You know how that goes, man.
All right. And the 3-year-old is just gonna talk about his favorite cartoon characters. He's gonna give a talk.
How cute. Aw.
Okay, so Gina said she beat cancer 24 years ago. In addition, she had to deal with addiction, depression, anxiety, fear. It's www.myitaliantherapy.com. Audiobooks coming soon. She says, thanks, you guys. Gina, we love you. You know that. That's no secret. Webinar coming. Yeah, fun next week. Yeah, Black animation. Yeah, she's talking about all the things you said coming up. Yes, hugs to all of us. Yes, Gina, hugs back to you, and we love you. Pamela says, I look forward to the planned discussions. My daughter will be the one on Blacks and animation. Yeah, wow. There is Black. Yes, so it's going to be a great show. We have some great content coming up. So I'm going to end the show right now. Obviously, I'm going to end the show. Then I keep talking for another half an hour. Please,
You're like a pastor of a church.
I know. On the Town with Tanya on Thursdays and Sundays. Follow Tanya, and she will give you updates as to when her show goes live. Please pick up Kevin Lee's book, Playing with Fire. You can also pick that up on Amazon. Please follow Desi so you can watch him and his kids. And Preach. Watch Preach. I guess Preach. Well, what else? Preach.
Selling comic books on the side.
Read a couple of comic books.
So thank you guys so much. I'm Carl Yard. We are the 5 Black Comics, and thank you guys so much for watching the show. We truly appreciate you guys watching the show every Saturday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.